Hello, innovators, and welcome to another episode of the Heitland Show, where I connect the dots of innovation and entrepreneurship with my guests. Today's guest is a website strategist. Ebony has a wealth of experience. She worked in an ad agency for Mercedes-Benz, as a journalist for the ABC News in New York before she traveled around the world and started to build her own business. We talk about her experience and discuss the importance of building a website for personal use and for business, and dive a little bit into email marketing. Please welcome to the show Ebony Williams. Hello, Ebony. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Looking forward
Thanks
to
for
our
having me.
conversation. Yes, it's a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to learn about website building and website strategies from you today, which is an important part specifically for startups and entrepreneurs, but as well like people working in large organizations and people who want to innovate. But before we go into this, Ebony, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? How did you get to where you are today?
Oh my goodness. Well, this was actually not my background. It was something that I kind of fell into. So my background is in like my first job, I guess. Let's actually go before then. My background in college, I studied fashion merchandising, and I just knew I always wanted to live in New York City, and so I knew that was the place to be. But at that time, I couldn't actually find something in fashion, and I really wasn't sure. Like I wasn't necessarily like married to fashion. I was just more so thinking like I gotta get to New York City. So the first job that I had in New York was actually at an advertising agency in the media planning department. So I planned media for the client that I had at that agency was Mercedes-Benz. So I planned media for Mercedes-Benz USA, and I had like a section of the states that I kind of like I guess oversaw in a way and helped with those media plans. And so I did that for about 2.5 years, and then I pivoted and did like a crazy jump from that to journalism. And so for maybe another 2.5 years, I worked as a journalist at ABC News. And so I worked at the news desk. So basically, the news desk is the more or less like the hub of the network. And so we were more or less like the gatekeepers of the news. And so we were the ones kind of in the news gathering department, getting all the news in and then like funneling out the reports to different shows and platforms like under the ABC News umbrella. So I did that for a while. And then I pivoted again and I was like, you know what? I just kind of want to do my own thing. I just want to kind of see like what else is out there and just really spread my wings. And I was getting also a bit of the travel bug. So I think, yeah, it was 2016. I quit my job and I traveled around the world for 8 months. And
Awesome.
that trip was eye opening. And so when I came back home, I didn't have any money. And I was like, well, what do I do now? But it was so on that trip because it was the first time that I saw people working from home. And I mean, now today, like so many people are working from home, but back then it was kind of like not a thing. There were some people that were doing it, but it wasn't like I don't want to say like accepted, but more or less it really wasn't. And if you ask someone about working from home, everyone was like, no, like, why do you want to work from home? Like, come to the office. Why would you want to do that? So it was the first time I saw people working from wherever they wanted, all over the world, just using their laptop. And so I was thinking, how can I use like a skill that I have to start doing the same thing? And so it took a little bit of trial and error. It took some investing in courses and like learning more about the online business world because although the online world may give you this impression that it's easy, like it's a lot
Yeah.
that goes on behind the scenes in terms of like building a brand and building like the longevity of like an online business. And so, yeah, I took this course, had a mentor, created a blog, and before I worked with someone kind of one on one or got some one on one coaching, I was just blogging and wasn't making any money. And so I was like, okay, I need to make some money. And I had a call with a mentor, and she basically suggested, like, well, did you build your own website? If you know that skill, like that's a skill that some people need because, a lot of people, they are now moving into this online world more and more, and they don't know how to build a website. And so she taught people how to set up a wellness business, but more so like the marketing portion. But
Mm.
in her course, she says you need a website. So she basically said, if you set this up like this, I'll refer people to you. And that was really the start of all this. And the way it looks then is obviously it's evolved in the last, what was that, like 2 or 3, maybe 3 years ago? It's evolved a lot from that point to now.
Mm.
So, and this is how I kind of got to this point here. And then also what's helped it to evolve was listening to my customers and their feedback. Because at first I was just more so like a tech expert. So I was just connecting like the elements you need to start your website. So like your domain, to your hosting plans, to like a template. And then that evolved to more like custom designs once I became more comfortable in different like website platforms because I'm self-taught. So like I didn't know any of this technology or anything. So just working more in it, I became more comfortable. And now I have a few different platforms that I just use because I'm really good in them. So when someone comes to me and they ask for certain things, I just kind of like list these things that I use and go right in and like set it all up.
Very interesting story. So I would a couple of follow-up questions to your story. Um, we will dive deeper for sure into the website building because I'm very interested in that for myself, of course, and I've seen your beautiful website. Um, Mentor, how was it, and how important was the mentor for you in that situation?
Oh my God, super important because it's like you really don't know what you don't know. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And so having someone that was where I was at that point to kind of like show me the way, it
Mm.
was really nice and it was so helpful. And also, I think this happens in many cases with many people. It's we're so used to doing our things and just being in such a routine that we don't even know that like the things that we know how to do are things that people don't know how to do, and they will pay you for that skill because it's something that they need. And so when she was the kind of the person that highlighted that for me, and I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, I just did this for myself, just like this, like it was nothing." And
Mm.
she's like, "Yeah, but people pay people to do this."
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it's a very important point because sometimes we think we need to do everything ourselves and it works kind of, but you're like double the speed if you have someone who is helping you in
Absolutely.
in all business life, specifically when you're new. When you have built 5 businesses, maybe then you don't need it anymore. But still, I mean, I have had mentors in my whole career, and that was inside of the corporate world, and still have mentors right now who help me figuring things out. And that's
Yeah,
super important.
they are essential because most of the time they're somewhere that you haven't reached yet. And so they're kind of like at the mountaintop telling you down here, like, "This is what's happening, like, watch out for that rock," you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
"Move your hand
absolutely.
this way."
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I have learned so a lot, and then sometimes it's really small things you learn.
Yeah,
It's not super big things. It's the small nuances that make you successful. It's not, yes, you should have a website. Everyone understands that, I hope at least. But it's like, how do you build the website? How do you do this? And we will go into that. But before we do this, what are the different skills you have picked up working in the ads agency and learning about fashion merchandising and then going into traveling, and then kind of how does all of this merge into building
mhm.
website, working on strategies for a website, helping clients to succeed in what they're doing?
I think, first of all, not being afraid to change,
Hmm.
because sometimes we are stuck in our ways or in our thinking, and not being afraid to, like, kind of push the boundaries and be really creative. So, like, for instance, the creativity I learned in my fashion merchandising program was about like design in some parts, and sometimes I use that when I think about like my websites. in the marketing and advertising world, definitely. Because even though, yes, your website needs to look beautiful, you need to attract your clients, but it also has to have a good marketing strategy,
Yeah.
or else it will not convert. And then in terms of like my experience from working at ABC, that I learned a lot about like, working in a fast paced environment, like learning how to be a better storyteller, which is something that sometimes I help my clients with that. If they need a bit of help with like copywriting or like tweaking words on their website, because again, like your website, as beautiful as it can be, it needs to convert, and copy is something that's super important.
Yeah. From the you mentioned that this location independent perspective, how important is it still to you today?
Oh my god, it is so important. Like, funny enough, I've been in the same location more or less for, like, 2 years. However, it's by choice, you know? So I think what's important for me is just having freedom
Yeah.
to choose where I wanna be.
Yeah. And the people you work with, they're everywhere in the whole world, or do you specific English speaking only, or how does that work?
Yeah, most of my clients are in the States. However, I think I've worked with someone, yeah, I worked with a client in Singapore,
Hmm.
and I had a client recently reach out to me from Australia. So I do have some clients in other parts of the world. However, yeah, the majority of them are definitely in the States.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go into website. Let's start high level. Why should people have a website?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, these past 2 years should show everyone that everyone needs to have some kind of presence on the internet. And I even think it's important, even if you do have a job and you
Hmm.
work at, a corporation, it's still nice to have something online where you can like highlight you as a professional, where people can easily like recognize your skills. Because I think while it's nice to have a job, you also are an individual with a skill set, you know? And so you can use like maybe a one sheeter like website to still like market yourself in that way.
Yeah.
So, and also the internet is so large and it's like people need to know what you do. And so social media and all that is great, but you don't own those platforms. So having a website and something that you own, you manage the content is really important.
Yeah. That's one of the things I learned way too late. So I started my own website and business website as well after I left the corporate world.
Mm,
But I was always saying, like, damn, I should have started that 10 years ago because in the end, you're having a brand anyhow. And I haven't been
exactly.
sharing that brand at all because I was always working in duty for the company. And then kind of when I stepped out of the corporate world, then it was like, yeah, now I need a website. Now I need to build my own brand where it's like completely silly in a way.
Yeah,
Because if I would have started that earlier, the switch would be way easier because there is already something and it has built traction. It has like formed my brand already, not starting from zero and figuring it out.
I agree. Yeah, and it's something that people can implement like right now. And it doesn't have to be this like elaborate thing. It can just be like, this is me. This is
Yeah.
what I do. And because I think it's great, like you were saying, to separate yourself from your company.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like you are a person first. Like you're not your company. And while it's you provide them a skill as well. So if you start thinking about yourself as like maybe you're not hired as a contractor, but in a way they are contracting you for certain skills.
Yeah.
So if you start thinking about it like that, it also expands your mindset in terms of like you don't have to be at that company. Like, oh, if I am the contractor and you're hiring me for these skills because I'm an expert in these skills, then I can also take these skills over here. I can take them here and here because these skills are very valuable because these people are paying me to do these things. And if you
Yeah.
start thinking about it like that, that's the mindset you can use when building your website.
Yeah. Let's talk about business website. Why is it critical for someone who is a business to have a proper website?
Oh yeah, it's essential if you have a business and you definitely need a website because again, like you can generate leads from social media, which is great, but then it's like, then what happens after that? And so you need them to be off of social media and on to your website to either like join your email list or maybe sign up for your services or something. But you need some kind of place on the internet where like people can come and find more about you. And again, something that you own. And I think it's great for any kind of business. So whether you have a brick and mortar business, whether you have like a e-commerce shop, whether you are a consultant or a coach, everyone needs a website.
Yeah. And it's so important. I mean, there's still a lot of, we think it's everyone is digital, but it's not, as you know as well. So there are a
Yeah.
lot of companies who are just working in the physical world, and they have like a very old school website. I
Yeah.
have, I mean, I've lived the last years in Germany, and I can't tell you how many bad websites. Even I could have done it better. And I'm not a website builder at all. I think my websites, that's something we need to discuss later.
Yeah.
My website need to ramp up as well, but I think it's really it's like a business card
It
you
is.
show, because people, at least I do the same. So I moved to Spain in January. I'm
Mhm.
reaching out to companies because I want to introduce myself. I'm reaching out to people. And what you do, you go to LinkedIn. If you work with LinkedIn, then you look at their profile, and then you click to their website and look at their
Exactly.
website. Because on LinkedIn you can write, yeah, I'm the president of the United States, which you most probably would not do on your website.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the other thing too is, yeah, the first thing people do is they Google people.
yeah, exactly.
Typically, your website or social media, I don't know, these things pop up. And it's like, okay, yeah, if I Google you and it's just like Twitter or something, like, okay, fine. But like, what else? And the
Mm,
website just makes you look more professional also.
yeah,
Like as
uh,
like you really are this person, you're an expert, you're creating content, you know. And something a while ago you asked me like in the beginning was like, how did I make this pivot? Because yeah, people didn't know me, Ebony, as the website girl. Like they knew that I
yeah,
traveled, but they're like, okay, what is she doing? We know she used to work in New York City, but like, what is she doing now? And so I started pumping out content around websites, and then people were like, oh, she actually knows what she's
yeah,
talking about.
yeah,
So having like a website can also give you like make you that authority person, and then people start to know like, oh, you know, you are this expert in this. Like now I know when I need this, I can come to you for that.
yeah. Super important. If we go deeper into the website, what are key components you help your clients with, or what are key, let's say, components even for people who have never done a website? What are the things you look at when you help someone creating a website? Let's say, let's start from zero. They don't have a website.
This is an excellent question. The first thing is we need to understand like, what is your goal? Like, why are you building this website? What do you want people to do when they come there? Because that's going to change the game for the entire vision of the site. So, if you're telling me, I was thinking of this example because I work with a lot of health coaches.
Hmm.
So, like, if you're telling me, okay, I'm a health coach and my goal is to build an email list. I don't yet have an offer. So maybe you don't have an offer or something that you're selling right now, but you know you need to start maybe having a potential like client list or people that could potentially turn to clients and leads. So I would say, okay, if your focus is building your email list, you definitely need a website. And on that website, you need call to actions. And the call to actions need to be around increasing your email list.
Hmm.
So that could be an opt-in that says, you know, something that your ideal client would want. And basically you get their contact information, like their email and their name in exchange for something that they want.
Right.
And I think that can be like a really easy thing that you can do. And sometimes you can even go with some email providers. Some now even provide like landing pages. However, I do recommend just like having your own landing page on a website platform and embedding like that email marketing list in there. But yeah, that's something that I highly recommend because you see so many websites and some of them are really good, but they don't have an email list. And it's like, okay, so when you get traffic to your website, especially if you're paying for traffic, what happens if those people don't buy from you right away? Like, what are you doing with the leads?
Yeah. But I think that's really where your strategic approach comes, and it's not just, hey, let's build a website, which is like, yeah,
Exactly.
it's more about how do you use this website strategically for your business if you are a business, and then, like you say, convert people from visitors to at least friends, let's call it friends, if they're choosing to opt in your newsletter, whatever you do.
Exactly.
And then they're willing to be part of your community, part of what you're doing, and you have the possibility to engage with them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if we have this parts, what are other critical points from a website?
So other critical points are the email newsletter, but also like call to actions, as I was mentioning. So like buttons. Sometimes you don't even see a ton of these on the website. And it's
Mm,
like, okay, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? So like if your main thing is I want to get people on a call, okay, then maybe having something that says book a call and on the menu bar, having when you first come onto a website, like the top photo more or less is like the header photo. So making sure that whatever you want someone to do something, having it like right above the fold more or less, and some action words. So I always like to say a statement that works well is like I help who you
yeah,
help and how you help them. Like something like that at the top, because when someone comes to your website, you want them to identify with that statement and kind of stick around for a bit and maybe click on that, book a call so they can like find more about what you do and how they can partner with you.
yeah. I'm taking notes for myself.
You're like, I need a book a call on your website.
Exactly. No, but
Yeah.
that's good. So, okay, having a perspective of what's the call to action, how do you see it from, let's say I'm running a business,
Hmm.
you said like coaching business, health coaching business, if we just stick with that example,
Okay.
how much important is the person and how much important is the company for you building the website? Is there a difference, or
You
how do you
mean the
see that?
person and the client or the client and their business? Or
Yeah,
you mean like,
like the person who is owning that business and the business brand, let's say they can call it, if I'm the client, it's like my website Jens Heitland, or it's my business, which is, hey, innovation whatever.
oh, okay. So it's tricky because most of my clients are their brand because it's
Okay.
like they're providing the service. So they use their name in
Mm,
their business in some way. So it's almost a bit like synonymous, like it's one and the same. Um, so yeah, most of them are their brand. However, in your case, are you asking like how would I differentiate the two?
yeah. And if it and how would you highlight that in different ways, or would you say no, put you as a person in the front because that's more important than your business? Like
Yeah.
what is your thinking around that, and as well experience?
Yeah, I think it depends because if you are offering a service, I was actually, it's funny you asked me this. I was actually just having this conversation with a client who is my grandmother. I'm building a website for her. And she has, she's a digital artist. And so her business technically isn't about her. Like she
Mm,
has a name and it's like separate, kind of like you in your example,
yeah.
and she's not necessarily providing a service, she's more so selling her art. And
Mm,
so in that case, we were discussing should she put herself on the front because we have like an about section about the company,
mm,
or should it be more about like her, or maybe kind of like our company does this,
yeah, yeah.
and I think we're going to go a bit half and half, because it just works out for her kind of business. And so with you, I think because you are the person that provides the service and your clients work directly with you, I think it is cool to, I mean, a bit better to kind of have you as the face because it's like, I'm going to be paying you to help me with something.
Yeah.
So I would definitely incorporate you into the business. And also, like, your story is really interesting. And I'm sure your clients relate to you and your story. And that's
Hmm.
probably something that would also make them want to work with you. So I would definitely include you in the business.
Yeah. Now, I see this specifically if we take the example of health clients.
Hmm.
Let's say worst case scenario, it's a
Okay.
health coach who is not living healthy. Nobody
Oh,
would ever believe that person to be a health coach.
gotcha.
It's like, or another example, you're a physical, like personal trainer, and you're not in shape yourself. It's like, yeah, how
Yeah.
do you want to convince someone? So
It's like,
that's where I see it. It's important that this person is as well living the brand, being the
absolutely.
person that they're saying. It's like
Absolutely.
if we take your example, you having a website that's shabby like mine would not sell websites. That would be like, yeah, okay, it's definitely not going to work.
Or if I didn't have one at all, you'd be
Yeah,
like, "Wait a minute, why is she
exactly.
telling me I need one and she doesn't have one?"
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
"Alright, guys." Now, I will say I need to tweak some things on my website because sometimes I'm so focused on my clients, and then I'm like, "Oh, I need to go back and add this to mine."
yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay, so putting the person as context in this, and then there are a lot of strategies out there. At least what I have heard, there's kind of, yeah, you should not have a website. You should have a funnel. You like, what are your perspectives on that?
yeah. So it's tricky because I think it depends on where you are, right? Because
Mm,
if you're just starting out, you may be like, what is a funnel? Do I need a funnel?
yeah,
Like, I don't want to be overwhelmed by all this tech and people tell me I need all the things. And I'm like, I don't even have my offer nailed down yet, you know?
mm,
So in that case, if you resonate with that person, I would definitely say yes. Maybe you don't have a full website, or maybe you do, but having some kind of landing page that kind of says like who you are, what you want to do, and having that email opt in so people can opt in and join your newsletter, I think it's great. Um, and in that case, like, yeah, maybe when they opt in to get your newsletter, they get their freebie. And maybe that can be the extent of your funnel. However, if you are more advanced and you're like, okay, I have an offer, I have clients, I'm running ads, maybe I'm not running ads, but I want to rev up this newsletter, then yeah, you probably need some kind of funnel and you need to have build on what I just said. So have your website, have an email opt in, and then have a sequence, right? And so maybe the first email in your welcome sequence is who you are, or delivering that freebie. The
yeah,
next one is introducing who you are. Maybe the next one is introducing how someone can work with you. And then you can start going into like a sales pitch,
mm,
some other emails. And maybe I think what's also really nice in a funnel is really highlighting testimonies and people that you've worked with, because a lot of times people come into your website like they don't really know you.
yeah.
And so in an email list or in a funnel you can kind of create this sequence as like nurturing and getting to know the person that just joined your list.
Yeah. So, from your service perspective, of course, the main service is the website and the strategy of the website. Do you then help your clients with, like, the example of the email list? Do you help them with the setup of that as well, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I'll help them with, I don't build out the whole list, but I
Yeah,
do help them a bit with like, setting up the opt-in, linking it. So I at the time that we are recording this, I use ConvertKit.
yeah.
So I set up ConvertKit for them, maybe help them create like their welcome email sequence,
Hmm.
and help them link that up. But a lot of my clients are just like starting out, so they don't have like crazy funnels or anything like that.
Yeah. No, it's because some, especially if you take myself, coming from the corporate and building my own business, you have no idea about, hey, why should I have an email list? What is an email list?
Yeah,
And so on. So I think that's why I was asking. One thing is the website, but if you are running a business, then an email list is a
essentially.
strategy that helps you to build something. And there are specific ways in doing that. We don't need to go into that, but I think it's important to have at least the setup
For sure.
ready. And most of the people who are not designing their website on their own, um, they don't have the technical knowledge as well to put all of these things together. So they need someone and like yourself helping them.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of people that do, or maybe I won't say a lot, but some people that do websites, it's just like they are just a designer.
Yeah,
And I don't want to say just a designer because branding is important too, but they don't really focus on the strategy side. But for me, that's where I feel it's my like superpowers because
yeah,
I love the strategy because you can spend, 10K or, 5K or whatever on a website that looks very nice, but there's no strategy behind it. You know what I mean? And so that's where I like to kind of look at the bigger picture. And also, that's what I think about when I'm thinking about like the technology pieces too. It's like, okay, yeah, you do need an email list, but if you're just telling me, like you just said, you came from a corporate background and all of this tech is kind of like, what the heck is all this?
yeah,
It's like, I'm going to put you in a platform for email marketing that's you're going to be able to manage on your own. So when I give this back to you, you'll be able to at least update a little bit of these things and it won't feel so overwhelming.
yeah. Talking about copy, what I realized when I researched you before the interview, your copy on the website, at least for me, is awesome. So
Thank you.
and we know each other. We have met at least in person. Uh, so it really reflects who you are and how you are as a person as well. When you sit next to someone and having a drink or having a dinner or whatever, and I really like that it is so very good reflected compared to my website, which is like, yeah, I'm the copywriter and I can't really do that.
Okay.
It's also reflecting myself, but how important is the copy part? You have
Oh my
scratched it
God.
already a bit, but can you tell a little bit more about that?
Well, thank you so much for that. I actually worked hard on that. I worked a lot on that, like creating copy, but it's so important because, again, for me, I'm the person that offers the service.
Mm,
So I want people to understand, like, who I am and, like, this is what you're going to get when you work with me, essentially, right? And so I try to when you come to my website, yeah, you're not gonna get this like robotic, like, hello, how are you? You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna add some flavor, right?
yeah,
Because it's like I'm like, hey girl, hey, something like this. And it's very conversational, like you said, like we're just sitting here talking. But I feel that works for me. So I do think as the business owner or the person who owns the website, you do have to determine who your audience is because it
mm,
works for me and the people I work with. However, if you maybe have a more corporate crowd, maybe a different kind of tone would be different for them. But maybe they may find it as a breath of fresh air if you add a little bit of flair into it, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Because I feel like it's kind of like this format of this podcast, like you and I are just having a conversation. And I feel like it's so nice because people listen to it and they're like, oh, yeah, like we're talking about something that can be seen as maybe complex or overwhelming. But in this format, it feels a little chill.
yeah. And for me at least, what I like very much, with people who are authentic and reflect that inside of their digital world, website, social media, wherever, where you literally you're the same person wherever you find that person. It's not like, okay, now this is the business person and this is the like
Exactly.
the human version of the business person.
Yeah.
At least that's for me very authentic, and that's what I try to do since I left the corporate world, where I said like, I don't have the burden of fitting in. I'm just being myself, and I don't need to represent the big brand I was working for, and no, don't need to be cautious about that. I can just be who I am, and that's what it is.
And that's what sells. I mean, if you think about even influencer marketing, that's why influencer
Yeah,
marketing does so well and brands partner with influencers because it kind of brings this personality to like a brand. And they pick people who have different personalities to represent their brand. And it's the same thing. You should think about that with your own brand.
yeah,
Who are you representing? How do you want to be portrayed in your brand?
Yeah.
Like, you essentially are the influencer, you know?
Yeah, I am.
You are.
Oh,
Yeah.
so talking about the personal brand aspect, do you provide this service as well? Do you help, let's say, when when you find someone who is starting out, they don't have a website yet, do you help them to kind of distill what the brand is to be able to put it into the website? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so sometimes I like add this into like for instance I do like custom sites. So like if someone is just starting out, I kind of like package this in there, like build it into something because they do some need this help. And so I'll kind of like talk to them to figure out, okay, like what is going on? Like what do you actually need help with?
Hmm.
And we kind of like talk through this because it matters a lot. Like you need to infuse if you are the brand and you are offering the service, like you need to infuse yourself in it because that's what people are going to buy.
Yeah. Huh. Love it. I could talk 20 hours more on websites.
I
But I
got
think
all day, Jens.
yeah, no, we have covered a really important parts, and maybe we do a live show one day where we go through my website and you give tips
Oh
and
my God,
tricks.
yes, we
So
should totally do
let's figure that out. But let's go to the last part of the podcast where I'm asking questions that are slightly not related to what we have talked until now. First one is, if you can work with a project that is impacting every human being on earth,
Oh my gosh.
what project would you choose to work with, and why would you choose that project?
I definitely want to do like some kind of project on the blockchain. And why? Because it's funny you ask this because I'm actually working on a project right now.
Hmm.
I'm in the very, very early stages of it. So I don't know, maybe at the time that this comes out, keep this. And then when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, now I'm like this millionaire. But yeah, I'm working on a project around a problem that I experienced in my life. And it's related to like paying things essentially because I am an American. So like most of my money and everything that like how I get paid is in dollars. So
Hmm.
I have like accounts and things in the States. However, I live here and I have to like transfer the money, do all this stuff. And so sometimes it is a problem when I'm like paying for things in terms of like moving, because it's like I'm making several different moves for
Yeah.
one transaction. And so, yes, I had this idea recently to simplify my life. And then I started talking to other people who are other expats that live all around the world. And they were telling me they had a similar problem in terms of like paying. And like, yeah, there are different things you can use to kind of incorporate this, but it's still like these different steps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just want it to be like one transaction and it's like boom and it's done. So this is actually something I'm working on right now.
That's cool. I'm interested in that as well, I can tell you.
I will have to tell you more about it.
And maybe just to add, because you haven't mentioned that you're living in Spain right now, like I do. That's where we met. So US and working with the US, but living in Spain, the
Mhm.
sunny, the sunny side.
Yeah.
So where will you be in a year from now?
Dun, dun, dun. I have no idea. Um, so I kind of like to feel it out a bit. So like today, I love it here.
Hmm.
Tomorrow I may say, maybe I need to move to Italy or something like that. I don't
Yeah.
know. And yeah, so the thing I love about here, and I mean more or less I would probably be here, um, because I find that I've kind of built like a community here. Like I have friends, like it feels like home.
Hmm.
So I definitely think I will be here for a bit for sure. So probably in a year I will be here.
Good. How do you keep yourself up to date on the topics that interest you?
I join memberships and like coaching programs, and I'm constantly learning from people who are like steps ahead of me. So that's mostly how I get like a lot of like information about like entrepreneurship or business in general.
Hmm.
And also like, social media sometimes, following people who are giving tips. Podcasts, oh my God, I'm obsessed with podcasts actually. Podcasts too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I
clearly.
don't know why. I don't know why.
Me neither.
Cool. How can people reach out to you and where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on my website. It's ebonytravels.com. And you can also find me on Instagram. I'm pretty like chatty on Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram, on my website, or LinkedIn.
Yeah. And I will put that as well into the show notes so people can straight away
Awesome.
scroll down and click to it. Or the same if you're on YouTube.
And we can be friends.
Yes. And of course, reach out to Ebony if you are interested in learning more about websites. That's a small
Absolutely.
call to action in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ebony, thank you very much for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was great. So much fun.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to today's episode. You will find the links and resources in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support the podcast, the most impactful thing you can do is subscribing to the show on any of the podcasting platforms and give me a review. This will help me to reach more innovators around the world and bring some of you into the show. If you have any question to the guest or want to engage with me, feel free to reach out to me on social media and contact me there.